All kinds of things going on. Marco Rubio, Matt Gaetz, Tulsi. Tulsi's got a gig too. Oh my gosh. Like there's a whole new thing going on in Washington, D.C. And you can imagine a lot of people are pretty darn scared right about now. But I'm telling you, it's good. It's all good. Here we go to the White House just earlier today. Biden actually looking kind of happy.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President, thank you. Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Of course, you know, he won effectively, Biden. I mean, how could he not? Kamala Harris, who tried to swoop in and knock him right off the ticket as she did, she's SOL. He remains the only guy who's ever managed to beat Donald Trump. You know, all kinds of things are going on. As I said, we got major changes. Major changes. There's going to be something called the DOGE. It's sending the fear through the halls of Washington, D.C. right now. The Department of Government Efficiency. I just love this meme. This cracked me up. This one came out. I'm gonna show it to you in just a moment, and we're gonna hear some commentary from Elon Musk. But this is important. I mean, there's lots of stuff going down right now. In the meantime, we also know that Pete Hegseth, my former colleague there at Fox News, has now been announced for Department of Defense. I've got some thoughts I want to share with you on that. I mean, Joy Reid's not too happy, right?
Weekend morning show host, you can't make this up, Pete Hegseth, to serve as Secretary of Defense, because why not?
Well, why not sell it? MSNBC too? While we're at, I mean, hey, so long as she's going to take that line of attack, it looks like MSNBC is indeed for sale. I want to share some details of that story with you. All kinds of cabinet positions are being announced. Matt Gaetz is AG. Let me tell you, that's going to get interesting. That's like putting Adam Schiff in, right? So Matt Gaetz is going to have some fun. You've got all kinds of things happening in real time. I'm actually coming to you a little bit later than normal today. Why? Because we've had so much coming in. My phone has not stopped ringing. I have some intel that I want to bring you on all these appointments, including Treasury that's in the works right now. Quick shout out to the store. The Trish Regan store, you know, Christmas is coming up, all that kind of stuff. You can get all your Trish Regan paraphernalia or merch, as the kids say, at the Trish Regan store right now. I'll tell you, this is all just amazing. Just amazing. Again, happening here in real time, and I love it. I really love it. The government is taking shape. Elon Musk heading over to DOGE, or however you want to say it. And I think his crypto went up on the news today too. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. It's going to be great. That just came in today. He got a warm welcome from Republicans there in D.C. as Donald Trump introduced him. And, you know, don't forget, this is a guy who's all about profitability. And he doesn't understand why there's so much waste in government. I mean, there's a lot of waste in a lot of places. He found a whole lot of waste when we went into Twitter, so much so that he wound up slashing 80% of the workforce. So Washington, watch out.
What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
Fired. Get out of here.
Okay. All right. The universe is having a lot of fun with this. So Department of Government Efficiency, what's it going to actually do? It's actually going to be an outside agency that looks at what's going on within government and opens up the books and says, okay, what can we do better? How do we make this more efficient? Elon Musk talking recently about how the path we're on is not sustainable. And he's right.
Our defense budget is pretty gigantic. It's $1 trillion. But the interest that we owe on the debt is now higher than the defense budget, over $1 trillion and growing. This is not sustainable. So we have to do something about that, or the country's going to go bankrupt. So that's an essential thing too. Yeah. So that's why we need the Department of Government Efficiency.
They like that. They like that. They like that. You know, people are frustrated, right? Because you pay all this money in taxes, and where does it go? To lots of inefficiencies. I was talking with my friend Alfredo Ortiz earlier today, who runs Job Creators Network, and he was telling me the Small Business Administration, it's a great example of it. They have like $1 billion budget, but you know how much they give out to small businesses? Somewhere in the vicinity of, I think he said $10 million. I'm like, how does that happen? Because you know what? They're employing so many people. It's all going to overhead. Well, Elon is going to change that. So this is going to get really interesting. A reminder to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. You're watching the Trish Regan Show, and it's a big one. It's a big one today. Joy Reid is not very happy about this whole Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy DOGE thing.
Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, great, we're going to get to hear his voice again for however many years till he gets fired. They're going to lead something called the Department of Government Efficiency. They're supposed to now be in charge of cutting the budget, which is normally the job of the House of Representatives. You served in the House. Doesn't the House have to be involved some way in creating a new government agency, or can Trump just whip one up on Twitter?
No, Joy, that's right. I think Donald Trump's just handing out candy right now to his friends and family. Congress is required to establish federal departments to define the jurisdiction, to decide how it's appointed. Presidents can certainly appoint aides and non-congressional positions, but there will not be a Department of Government Efficiency without Congress, which actually raises the question, does Congress now just rubber stamp that in one of its next appropriations bill? And here's what it's going to be. This is your Project 2025 department.
Yes.
The Department of Government Efficiency by Ramaswamy and Elon, that's your Project 2025 department. Correct. Without the bad impressions that Heritage created during the campaign trail.
Wow. I mean, they're really stuck on that. By the way, Project 2025 is like a good thing. We've talked about it here on the show. It's not like some kind of weird hidden agenda. It's actually very, very forthcoming. You can read about it. We've talked about it. I think we're going to have Heritage on next week. We can get into some of these comments with them. But listen, I mean, hey, don't we want to be energy independent? Don't we want to avoid the deep state? Don't we want freedom and education? All of these great things, all these things that will make us better as a nation. Listen, this is an amazing time. We saw Bitcoin go all the way to 93,000. I hope you bought it when I was talking about it. Remember back in September? We published a piece on it at 76 Research. I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of 65,000. Went all the way to 93,000 and change today. I'm looking at it in real time, $88,852. This is a play on what's to come, right? What the future is. And I'm telling you, the future, if we can get a lot of the regulation out of the way, and if we can double down on what we do well, which is create, because we just have this engine of growth that we can unleash here in America, that is going to be a tremendous era of prosperity. I want you to be in on it. We've actually created a guide, believe it or not, a guide to investing in the Trump boom over at 76 Research. My colleague Rob, who spent decades on Wall Street managing billions of dollars, myself, of course, in the financial media, and it's called investinmaga.com, investinmaga.com. Go there, it's all free. It's free. I want you to get the guide. Do that, because this is going to be an explosion. You have a new government taking shape. I mean, this is amazing. Biden and Trump today.
And the former president, thank you. Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So good. Welcome.
Thank you
Back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough. And it's, in many cases, not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome.
There's a nice fire behind them, don't you think? Anyway, they seem really in good spirits, right? Quite a difference from what we saw back in 2016. Dun-dun-dun. Not as happy a time. Not as happy a time. Senator John Thune was just named the majority leader there of the Senate. This is seen as rather interesting because a lot of people thought that Rick Scott was going to get it. But of course, that all happens by secret ballot. McConnell wanted that secret ballot just in case people wanted to vote a different way and they didn't want to get hung out to dry for it. And what's interesting here is that people actually voted for Thune over Rick Scott. In fact, Rick Scott was out from Florida in the first round. This is a very interesting development. Some see it as, oh, good, we get some adults in the room. Others are like, wait a second, but we needed Rick Scott and we needed that Florida contingency. Anyway, he has been he's now the replacement, if you would, for Mitch McConnell, who'd been the longest serving leader of either party in Senate history. Thune has served as the Republican whip since 2019. He did edge out John Cornyn of Texas on that second ballot. So he's out with a statement today saying he's really honored. I'm extremely honored to have earned the support of my colleagues to lead the 119th Congress, and I am beyond proud of the work we have done to secure our majority in the White House. This Republican team is united behind President Trump's agenda, and our work starts today. Here he is.
It's a new day in the United States Senate, and it's a new day in America. The American people have loudly rejected the failed policies of the Biden, Harris, Schumer agenda. And this Republican team is united. We are on one team. We are excited to reclaim the majority and to get to work with our colleagues in the House to enact President Trump's agenda. We have a mandate from the American people, a mandate not only to clean up the mess left by the Biden-Harris-Schumer agenda, but also to deliver on President Trump's priorities. We will make sure that the President and his team have the tools and the support that they need to enforce border security laws and to remove the violent criminals who are wreaking havoc in every one of our states. We will work to make America prosperous again by streamlining the bureaucratic machine and overturning costly Biden-Harris regulations. And we will work to restore American energy dominance. Not just our energy security, but energy dominance, which will lower costs and bolster our national security.
You know what? I like the sound of that. I really, really like the sound of that because you know what? We should be dominant in that field. I guess if anything goes awry, though, you want to make sure that you have your bases covered, which is one of the reasons to invest in gold. I actually think everything's going to go really well. I like gold no matter what because I am just a realist and I'm looking around the world at all these other players, and a lot of emerging market countries don't want to have to be dependent on the U.S. and treasuries anymore, which is one of the reasons why they're moving into gold. So gold has moved up a lot this year, not so much in the last couple of days, but unfortunately, any way you slice it, the money printing is here. I don't know as Elon can totally stop the presses yet. So if you're interested in investing in gold, go check my friends out at American Hartford Gold. You can get up to $15,000 in free silver right now with qualifying offers. You can text my name, Trish, to 65532. You can go to trishlovesgold.com because who can forget that? trishlovesgold.com, or you can call them at 1-844-495-1115. But more appointments are coming in. This is like, fresh, hot, off the presses. I mean, it began with a spectacular appointment. A guy who's going to ruffle a few feathers and has no problem doing so at all. That is my friend, Mr. Tom Homan.
Sure.
Mr. Homan.
But you work for me. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
All right, so that gives you a little taste of where we're going. The president-elect announcing just minutes ago that he is tapping Representative Matt Gaetz as Attorney General to serve the United States of America. This is the representative from Florida. He is quite a character. He is not afraid of a challenge. He is not afraid of a fight. And it is entirely possible that we may actually see a lot of fights in the coming weeks, in the coming days, in the coming years. So that's a big, big appointment. And if I were, say, Jack Smith, I'd be running for the hills. Well, Jack is. He is running for the hills. We'll get to that in a second. But just, again, to go through some of the other appointments, Marco Rubio, this is a big deal. We were waiting on this just yesterday. Marco Rubio being tapped for Secretary of State. There he is with the president, Marco Rubio is seen as being really tough on China, and that's going to be a big deal in this environment. Just to share with you his statement today, leading the U.S. Department of State is a tremendous responsibility. I'm honored by the trust President Trump has placed in me as Secretary of State. I will work every day to carry out his foreign policy agenda. Under the leadership of President Trump, we will deliver peace through strength and always the interest of Americans and Americans, only Americans, right? So big deal to get Marco Rubio in there now as Secretary of State. Another major appointment coming just within the last couple of hours. We got Tulsi Gabbard, ladies and gentlemen. Tulsi Gabbard. I know you guys wanted her, and Tulsi Gabbard is coming through there. The president, let's see, we've got another graphic I want to show you because he made a statement on this, but this is Tulsi, of course, and this is another big deal. So Department of National Intelligence. I mean, this is like the renegade crowd, is it not? So this is Donald Trump's statement in support of her. She's going to be the Director of National Intelligence for over 2 decades. He writes, Tulsi has fought for our country and our freedoms of all Americans. And as a former candidate for the Democrat presidential nomination, she has broad support in both parties. So these are change agents. I think that's the overall arching theme. Lots and lots of change agents. Matt Gaetz, one of them. Here's Trump on Truth Social saying he's honored to be appointing Matt. Matt is deeply gifted. He's a tenacious attorney, trained at William & Mary College of Law, distinguished himself in Congress through his focusing on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. I mean, he sure did, right? I mean, we used to love seeing, I still love seeing him in action. You know, the C-SPAN stuff that you can watch for 40 minutes because it's that entertaining when Matt Gaetz is in the seat. So lots of appointments still being made in this hour. I want to get to Pete Hegseth in just a second, but first, just some intel on the Treasury Department, the cabinet taking shape here. And apparently there is some discussion of a Treasury Secretary perhaps not going to Scott Bessent in the 11th hour, Howard Lutnick. Now, Howard runs Cantor Fitzgerald, an investment bank on Wall Street. You may remember it from the unfortunate 9/11 days. Anyway, Howard was head of the transition team, and he's looking around. He's like, okay, well, where's my gang? And apparently he wants Treasury. I'm not so sure it's going to come through. I am hearing, though, he's much needed potentially as head of the SEC, especially as we look at crypto and the sort of embracement, if you would, of crypto. What does that mean from a regulatory standpoint? So Howard likely to get something, not necessarily Treasury. I'm still hearing Scott Bessent, probably Bessent, the lock there at Treasury. So, whoo! I mean, is that a lot to get through or what, guys? I mean, really? I got to stop for a drink of water because it is a lot of content. And I want to take a minute as we go to this next story. Pete Hegseth, he was named last night as Trump's pick for Department of Defense. Now, Pete Hegseth is a great guy, I can tell you. Pete Hegseth named as Department of Defense Secretary by Donald Trump. He is a terrific guy. I have known him a lot of years. He was and is a player on Fox News. He hosts the weekend show there. I used to have him on quite regularly on my evening show, on my daytime show too, but he used to come on quite regularly on the evening show. He's just a really smart guy. He's got a great background. He went to Harvard undergrad, Princeton undergrad, back when that meant something, and to Harvard for his master's in policy at the Kennedy School. Again, back when it meant something. He has been in Afghanistan. He has been in Iraq. He has 2 bronze medals. So in other words, this is somebody who is a veteran himself, ran a veterans group after the fact before he became a Fox News contributor. He used to come on TV and people were like, oh my gosh, like he's kind of good. He speaks well. He's articulate. He's smart. He looks great. And before you knew it, he became a regular and then eventually went on to host that weekend morning show. So fascinating. He's outside the box. Right? How do I say that? He's totally outside the box. Like when I first heard it, I'm going to be perfectly honest, and I love Pete. In fact, I'm going to say something about Pete. You know, when I left Fox, people get weird, you know, when things like that happen. And he was one of the few people to reach out to me. I mean, the president, by the way, too, which I will always credit him with. The next morning, I was calling my house. But Pete reached out right away, and we have stayed in contact since. And he's just a really stand-up guy. He has a large family, lots of kids. He's passionate about this country and about patriotism. And, the left's piling all over him as fast as they can. But I want to share a clip of him talking, and you can see a little window into his intellect and what I think he could do for Department of Defense, which we'll discuss.
The Pentagon is in the book, the exact amount of years, but in the past X number of years, 10, 12, 15, the Pentagon has a perfect record in all of its war games against China. We lose every time inside the Pentagon war games. We know what our real capability. You see, we didn't even get to this part of the war on warriors. I mean, the military-industrial complex, the way we procure weapon systems, we're always, the way our system works, the way our bureaucratic system works, where the speed of weapons procurement works, we're always a decade behind in fighting the last war. Whereas China, we have, what did Rumsfeld say? You go to the war, the army you have. We have the army. China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America. That is their strategic outset. Take hypersonic missiles. So if our whole power projection platform is aircraft carriers and the ability to project power that way strategically around the globe, and yeah, we have a nuclear triad and all of that, but a big part of it. And if 15 hypersonic missiles can take out our 10 aircraft carriers in the first 20 minutes of a conflict, what does that look like?
Yeah.
I mean, and if they've already got us by the balls economically, which you pointed out very well, with our grid, culturally, there's plenty of elite capture going on around the globe. I mean, and then microchips and everything. Why do they want Taiwan? They want to corner the market completely on the technological future. We can't even drive our cars without the stuff we need out of China these days. I mean, they have a full spectrum, long-term view of not just regional but global domination, and we have our heads up our asses.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah. He means what he says, and he's not wrong. And if you look back at who has historically been our Department of Defense secretary, what you see actually is a lot of people that worked for corporations. I went and did a background on this. A lot of people worked at places like Raytheon or Boeing. I mean, Pat Shanahan was from Boeing. Mart Esper was at Raytheon. Lloyd Austin, he was a general, so he came from the military. I mean, he's no great shakes, right? He's the guy that went MIA for how many days? Ash Carter was a physicist. He had kind of been a government appointee for a long time. Leon Panetta, of course, was another bureaucrat. And Gaetz as well, Department of Defense and CIA director, another bureaucrat who brought that sort of bureaucrat experience. And now's a guy who is on television now, but he's actually been in the trenches with the troops, and he's got a pretty definitive view on things. And, he's enough with the woke media. It's one of the things I like about Pete. Here he is. CNN thinks this is a bad thing, what I'm about to show you. I say, haha, thank you.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women, and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
Okay, you're not supposed to say that, right? But Pete is willing to say things that maybe sometimes others aren't willing to say. And there's authenticity in that. And don't we need a little authenticity these days? So Pete Hegseth, now nominated for Department of Defense. Now, in full disclosure, I was surprised. So some friends were watching Laura's show in real time on Fox. And they sent me a text of the picture, the screen grab, showing Pete being announced. I'm like, oh, it's a joke, right? I really didn't see that happening. It was not a joke. She was completely serious. There we go, Trish. And I just hadn't thought of it before. I really had not thought of it before. He's certainly qualified. It's called thinking outside the box. I like that I hadn't thought of it before. And I'm hearing, we're going to hear more people, that maybe Trish Regan and nobody else has thought of before. And I think there's something to that. There's a certain power in that. Now, everybody's on it, oh my gosh, he's a Fox host, blah, 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 sits at the end of the couch, this, that, and the other. I mean, Joy Reid is just apoplectic. She can't believe this. She's hysterically laughing at it all. Let's listen.
The former and future president is moving quickly to fill the clown car and round out his cabinet before he changes his mind and fires them all. Moments ago, Trump announced that he has selected Fox weekend morning show host, you can't make this up, Pete Hegseth, to serve as Secretary of Defense, because why not?
Yeah. Well, your network's about to be sold, Joy. I hate to break the news. So I'd say that Pete's in better shape than you right about now. I mean, not to be mean or anything, but it is about to get sold. More on that in a second. But listen, you can say, oh, he's just a host on television, whatever. The guy has been in battle. The guy has gotten 2 bronze medals for being in battle. The guy was the CEO of a veterans organization. And by the way, the guy, after he left Princeton undergrad, was working at Bear Stearns as an equity analyst. Listen, I worked myself as an equity analyst at, actually a fixed income analyst, if we want to get really specific, at Goldman Sachs. And these jobs are not easy to get. He's smart. He's worked hard over the last couple of decades. You got this Elizabeth Warren out there tweeting up a storm. Oh my gosh, she's so angry at the idea that somehow Pete Hegseth could be our Department of Defense Secretary of Defense. I got to read this one to you because it's just sort of funny. I had to respond to it on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, by the way, at Trish_Regan. But I got a kick out of this one because she's just kind of bitter. And it's really coming out. The bitterness is evident. Elizabeth Warren is really mad that somehow Donald Trump picked a Fox and Friends weekend co-host. She writes, I led the Senate military personnel panel. All 3 of my brothers served in uniform. I respect every one of our service members. Donald Trump's pick will make us less safe and must be rejected. So that is Elizabeth Warren on Pete Hegseth. I would just point out again, he went to Princeton, went to Harvard, Kennedy School, back when all that mattered. And he was a Wall Street capital markets analyst over at Bear. And importantly, perhaps most importantly, a 2 times bronze medal recipient for his service in our armed services in the Army. He went on to run a couple of veterans groups. And I would just say that, you know what, Pete Hegseth has done a heck of a lot more, Elizabeth Warren, in his 44 years of age, and you have done in your 75. And I know he's way better looking than you. But you know what? Like maybe that'll actually inspire some people. You know, he's like the whole image, right? Could it inspire some young men to want to be in our armed services? Instead of, watching transgender TikTokers go on about how you should join the military because, maybe we had a free operation. Seriously, they had transgenders trying to recruit for the Biden administration on TikTok. I mean, it was outrageous for the Navy. I'm like, what's wrong with this world? You want a strong military and this is how you're going about it? Maybe you need a guy like Pete out there. Maybe you need somebody who kind of looks the part. And hopefully he surrounds himself with smart, seasoned people, but he's intelligent enough, bright enough to kind of buck the trend. And so I think this could be actually a huge, huge opportunity for the United States to maybe, dare I say, make the military cool again, right? Pete Hegseth with his wife and many kids and the tats, the whole thing, who definitely cuts a very different picture. Here he is. So this is Pete with the president. I want to show you one more. You can just see that this is going to be a whole different feel. This is him with his family. Again, let's make the military something that we want to do, that we want to be in, that people, respect. And I think there's a real shot of doing that. So again, Pete Hegseth getting this big opportunity. It's not something I would have necessarily thought of. Maybe Veterans Affairs would have crossed my mind, but this is what you call, ladies and gentlemen, thinking outside the box. And there's something really incredibly special about that. So Joy Reid is really mad. Oh, Pete Hegseth, how can he get this gig? You know, he's just nothing but a TV host. Oh, well, what are you, Joy, right? What are you? You're just a bad TV host. Take a look at the ratings over at MSNBC. They're down, 51%? Gosh. Since the election, 51%. I mean, they're just hemorrhaging viewers. And no wonder. I mean, you got people like that on the air that are promoting, once again, tremendous conspiracies and also discontent, opposition in a way that frankly is not healthy nor very humane. I would not be surprised if when MSNBC gets sold, and by the way, it's going to get sold. It's up for sale. In fact, if I look through the earnings report from Comcast from late October, I can see how Mike Cavanaugh, who's the president of MSNBC, revealed that the third quarter earnings of the media giant indicated that they were, quote, looking at a new, well-capitalized company owned by our shareholders and comprised of our strong portfolio of cable networks, meaning MSNBC, CNBC, Bravo, Sci-Fi, USA Network, and Oxygen, as well as True Crime. They are looking to possibly separate those cable entities from the broadcast Peacock streaming network. So they see the handwriting on the wall. I mean, the handwriting was on the wall anyway, right? I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum. The handwriting was on the wall because, let's face it, nobody's watching traditional TV. They're not really watching cable. I mean, I think Fox picked up some viewers, but for the most part, the mainstream media is kind of over with. And so Comcast knows this. Disney knows this. This is why they're trying to unload ABC, which, by the way, is the producer of The View. So, you know, we can say bye-bye to Whoopi Goldberg as well. But you look at these ratings, and they're up against it. So MSNBC is plunging. CNN is plunging. They, too, are parting ways with some of their hosts. I don't think they're trying to sell the thing like this one is, but Joy Reid is going to be challenged because I'm sure she commands a pretty penny, and I don't know as the new owner is going to really want to pay it, nor are they really going to love that she keeps having people on TV that say things like this, like you should separate yourself from your family this Thanksgiving if they dare to vote for Trump.
Do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, you know, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, you know, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me. And I actually talked to, you know, adults as well as advising parents for children. I mean, I think, you know, I don't think that you should force children. I don't think you should force adults to be around people just because they're your family. I think there's a level of need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental health.
Yeah. So the network's going to be put up for sale because Comcast sees the handwriting on the wall. And, well, you know, maybe they're not getting the big deals that they thought they were going to get. I don't know what Biden and Kamala and whoever might have been doing with them, but I don't think the revenue's coming in quite the way it was. You know, Trump spotted this years ago. Here we go. Let's go back to 2020. Walked down memory lane when he gave Peter Alexander a piece of his mind.
Scared.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead. I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. The American people are looking for answers, and they're looking for hope. And you're doing sensationalism, and the same with NBC and Comcast. I don't call it Comcast. I call it Comcast. Let me just for whom you work. Let me just say something. That's really bad reporting. And you ought to get back to reporting instead of sensationalism. Let's see if it works. It might and it might not. I happen to feel good about it, but who knows? I've been right a lot. Let's see what happens.
So this was back in the day when they were just going after him with anything and everything they could, right? So Comcast, which owns MSNBC, Trump knows Brian Roberts well, the owner of Comcast, the guy who runs it, rather, I should say, the chairman. And he's kind of looked at it for years now as a thorn in his side. And I think that Brian Roberts is starting to see the same exact issue. And so now he's like, wait a second, we're going to go into the next 4 years of this. Don't forget Ron McDaniels, remember, who was head of the RNC until Lara came in. Well, they got her a job. Somebody got her a job over at NBC. But the Joy Reids of the world, the Chuck Todds of the world, the Lawrence O'Donnells of the world were like, no. We can't have a Trump person here. We can't have a Trump person here because we don't deal with Trump people, right? We're not going to go to Thanksgiving with Trump people. We're going to cut off our Trump supporting family members. I mean, these people are just nuts. But anyway, Trump wrote at the time when this happened, just not too long ago, the sick degenerates over at MSDNC are really running NBC, and there seems nothing Chairman Brian Roberts can do about it. That's probably true. Watching Chuck Todd, of all people, viciously give Roberts a piece of his small mind and then berating him for hiring Rana without his or the other lunatic's approval was just a step too far. So he's referring to Chuck Todd going after Brian Roberts when Ronna McDaniel was brought in as a contributor there to NBC. I mean, the inmates have literally taken over the asylum. And I think at this point, Brian Roberts is like, okay, I want to be done. Like, let me move on. It's a failing business anyway. It's a failing business because guess what? We're all over here. We're all over. I mean, it's amazing to me because I've worked in traditional media my entire career up until now. And, it's a very different feel, obviously, over here. It's more three-way because I get to see all your comments actually in real time. Careful what you write. We'll go out to those comments in a little bit. But it's a very different experience overall, much more authentic. I don't have to go to commercial breaks even. I mean, we have sponsors. I'll do the sponsor read, et cetera. But there's no kind of rules around what we're doing. This is the Wild West, and it's exciting and it's fun for me, I think for you. And the authenticity is very different than what you see on the cable platforms. And so streaming really is the future. I mean, content will always matter, always matter. But how you get that content, that's entirely different now. I don't have to go work for CNBC or Fox in order to reach all of you. I actually can reach you so much better right here. And there's something truly, truly liberating about that. So yeah, MSNBC is going to get sold. There's lots of good stuff, I think, coming forward. I mean, you're going to see a lot of M&A activity. You're going to see a boom within certain industries. Energy, for example, is part of that. The energy story, I hope you took a look at Bitcoin. I know it's kind of scary. Because Bitcoin was something that a lot of you are not too fond about, and you maybe like gold better. I don't think it's an either or scenario, but we did tell you back on September 27th to look long and hard at Bitcoin because it was trading around 65,000. It's now it went all the way up to 93,500 today. It's totally volatile though, so I would caution you and just say, like, this is one where maybe you have a teeny tiny bit, you buy into one of the ETFs so you don't have to put over that much money. You can buy into an ETF. I think it's like $8 right now. So you can get one of those and have some exposure just for the heck of it. This is one of the things that we talk about in the Invest in Maga guide. Invest in MAGA. Investinmaga.com. Rob and I created this. It's totally free. I just want you to go there. I want you to have an understanding of what the opportunity really is right now. You're looking at the markets just on a tear. It's going to continue. This is my baby 76 research. You guys know I started this because I want more people, more Americans to be able to partake in the opportunity that's coming our way. So very, very exciting stuff. Listen, there's a lot, right? There's a lot to come. These cable networks, though, they're really challenged. So you've got the Joy Reids of the world that are on thin ice and may soon be fired for all the nonsense they're spouting. And then you got people like Joe Scarborough who were spouting nonsense as recently as last Monday. You're somehow a Nazi if you're going to vote for Trump, all that good stuff. And now Joey Boy is like trying to become the reincarnation of Tucker Carlson, complete with the tie. He's now wearing a jacket on set instead of the sweatshirt. He's like Mr. Prim and Proper. I mean, this is like one giant 180.
Amir, I mean, it is, again, the scope and scale of this victory is sweeping. And we can focus, by the way, we can focus on Donald Trump if we would like. But this goes so far beyond Donald Trump. Make no mistake, his victory, again, historic. But you look at Republicans across the nation. You look at how handily they're winning states. As Willie said, you look at Illinois, a 4-point margin. Illinois, a 5-point margin in New Jersey. This is a Democratic Party that has been just wiped out this morning.
Yeah, Republicans steamrolled. They have captured the Senate. The House still up for grabs, but those closest.
Yeah, so he's talking about also how they kind of went too far on the culture stuff. We've heard this from Carville as well. I believe it more from Carville, only because James Carville, who ran the Clinton campaign, has been in Democrat politics for decades. He actually was warning people about this ages ago. Joe Scarborough, on the other hand, just like drank the Kool-Aid yesterday, right? Like he's looking at the handwriting on the wall. He knows that Brian Roberts, his Comcast boss, is not too happy. He knows that the company may be sold. And he's not the only one suddenly changing their tune. I want to take you over to a show that we all hate. That would be The View. And take a look at what they're now saying. Here we go.
Welcome back. So it turns out every holiday season, political talk can be a tough topic to get into. But given the results of last week's election, Yale psychiatrist Dr. Amanda Calhoun suggested to Joy Reid that some people should sit this one out. Take a look.
There is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going to a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me.
So, yeah. What do you think?
I think everybody needs to do what's right for them. Yeah. I think you need to look into yourself, and if going to a family gathering or with friends where it's going to stress you out, then don't go. I'll tell you, Al has 5 children.
Your husband.
My husband has 5 children. Most of them or their spouses voted for Trump. The problem is those 5 children have 13 grandchildren he refuses not to see and not to be part of their lives. And so for our family, I mean, he has told them, I will not let politics split up our family.
Good.
I voted for Kamala. Others didn't. He is going to see his grandchildren come hell or high water. That's the choice that works for him.
I'm all for healthy boundaries, but I tend to think mashed potatoes are the great equalizer. Like, you don't want to spend Thanksgiving by yourself because you can't set politics aside. Like, I find that every day in every job I've worked in social circles I've run in, I've been around people who have different politics than me, and it's never gotten in the way of having friendships with them. I wouldn't have had any friends.
I wouldn't have had any
Really?
friends if I had to only pick the ones where everyone agreed with me. And so now there are times,
Max
and
wouldn't be with you.
I check in with myself and say, am I up for this? Because I also know struggling with mental health, there are times I'm not, and that's okay. You step away, but it will never be the defining point because toxic personalities don't have political affiliations. It's a personality trait that sucks, and we all are related to people like that. So whatever your reason is, I would never let my politics be the reason I don't show up to see my family because they won't.
Okay, you know what? Like, I'm not totally buying this. I'm really not. I mean, there's suddenly like, oh yeah, we're all fine. We're one big happy family. We listen to one of the ladies say, oh yeah, I'm friends with everyone. No, you're not. You're not. What have we been through the last 4 years? But cancel culture on steroids. It was fine to effectively spit in the face of somebody that was voting for Trump. I mean, for goodness darn sake, what did the former president of the United States? I was going to play it for you, but I don't have it. I think I already flushed it. This is Biden talking about how half the country are nothing but a bunch of pieces of garbage. I mean, he called half the country garbage. Let me tell you, there was no getting along with everyone. That was something that the left pushed forward over and over and over again. And now we're here dealing with the aftermath being a landslide for Donald Trump. So that landslide for Donald Trump tells you something. It tells the ladies on The View that they better wake up if they want to continue to have jobs. Well, the smart ones, that is. And then there's, well, people like Sonny.
I really do feel that this candidate, President-elect Trump, is just a different type of candidate. From the things he's said and the things he's done and the things he will do, it's more of a moral issue for me. And I think it's more of a moral issue for other people. We're just, I would say it was different when, let's say, Bush got elected. You may not have agreed with his policies, but you didn't feel like he was a deeply flawed person, deeply flawed by character, deeply flawed in morality.
I think a lot of Dems called him deeply flawed and humanized him.
But you got to admit, they're very different figures. I mean, you along with Milley and along with John Kelly warned us about how deeply flawed he was as a candidate. And so I think when people...
Yeah, I'll tell you, you know what? She's going to double down on her hate. Joy Reid is going to double down on her hate. And I have a prediction. The ratings are going to get worse, which means somebody's going to have to make some tough decisions. Now, Bob Iger wants to sell ABC News to possibly a private equity company that I think will just try and print profits as much as they can squeak them out of that company, which means, the David Muirs of the world or the Sonny Houstons or Whoopi Goldbergs that might be making big paychecks, they're going to be gone. They're going to be like, see ya, because they can't actually continue at that pace unless they get more appeal. And they don't have the mass appeal, and they cost a lot of money to produce. And we're living in a new world. You know who knows this? The folks over at CNN. CNN announcing that it is axing some top talent, asking people to take less money, engaging in layoffs right now. Look at this. Daily Mail headline, CNN will axe top stars in layoffs. They're going to see hundreds fired. One of those hundreds happens to be another one of my former colleagues. It's a very small world. Chris Wallace, he's going to be leaving CNN. Now, he's trying to get ahead of the news curve. He's putting it out into the media that he's been so inspired by Joe and by Tucker. Let me tell you, buddy, you are no Joe and you are no Tucker.
We have the 7th highest mortality rate in the world. Our mortality rate is higher than Brazil. It's higher than Russia. And the European Union has us on a travel ban.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, we have them on a travel ban too, Chris. I closed them off. If you remember, I was the one that did the European Union very early. But when you talk about mortality rates, I think it's the opposite. I think we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world. We're going to take a look.
We had 900 deaths on a single day.
We will take a look.
This week.
Ready?
You can check it out.
Could you please get me the mortality rate?
Yeah.
Kaylee's right here. I heard we had one of the lowest, maybe the lowest mortality rate anywhere in the world. You have the numbers, please? Because I heard we had the best mortality rate. Number one low mortality rate. I hope you show the scenario because it shows what fake news is all about. Okay,
I don't think I'm fake news, but we'll put
there you were.
We'll put our stats on.
You said we had the worst mortality rate in the world.
All right. Quick shout out for one of our terrific sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. That's Balance of Nature. Code word Trish for 50% off and free shipping. I take my fruits and veggies every day. We're going into the holidays. Listen, it's going to be a chaotic time. We've just been through the election. I'm still recovering from it. I'm on some kind of weird cloud nine. I think, I haven't slept a lot, but you know what? Thank goodness I take my fruits and veggies every day. That's what keeps me going. In all seriousness, it really is a terrific product, and I'm able to get my vitamin D levels back to normal thanks to these guys. Comes to my house every month. You can do the same thing. You can get free shipping plus 50% off, which I actually think is their best offer ever. So go to balanceofnature.com, code word Trish, or call them at 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751. These are great folks. And you know what? When you get the products that we're advertising here, it helps the show, it helps me. And look, you're helping yourself for that one too. So win, 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 win. We're talking about MSNBC, we're talking about CNN, and we're looking at as recently as just yesterday, the alleged corruption in the system, right? Because Kamala Harris spent $1 billion. $1 billion on her campaign. This is historic, okay? And she's got nothing to show for it. Can you imagine if she was actually running our budget? I mean, DOGE, you can't come soon enough. Well, thank goodness she's not going to be. But one has to wonder, I mean, considering the hysteria in certain sections of the media, was this because, I don't know, were certain people on the payroll? I'm asking the question because of this story right here, right now. The Harris campaign, according to the New York Post, donated $500,000 to Al Sharpton's nonprofit right before he sat down to do an interview with her, which was considered a softball interview. Now, isn't he an MSNBC guy? I mean, look, I think, again, if I'm Brian Roberts at Comcast, this thing is one giant hot potato. This is a fire sale. Get rid of this thing. One, it's got no future. Two, I'm burdened with all these questionable anchors doing questionable things. I mean, why are they so obsessed with Donald Trump losing? I mean, it became sort of hysterical. And then, funny enough, look what Joe Scarborough does the very next morning. He shows up at work in a suit and tie and suddenly is saying, I know why we lost. It's because of all that cultural nonsense that nonetheless people like Joy Reid continue to double down on in real time. Well, I'm asking the question, is this like pay to play? Like, are they all just somehow on the take? Somehow, some way they're getting money for this? Al Sharpton's nonprofit, National Action Network, allegedly got this $500,000. Now, don't forget the Washington Examiner went through a whole bunch of records. And what did they find? Harpo Productions, which runs the production company for Oprah Winfrey, got $1 million. 2 payments of $500,000 each. This is according to Washington Examiner. Now, Oprah says, no. Nothing to see here. There was nothing that she got. She was asked point blank about it just the other day by TMZ. She says, no, that didn't happen. But it just got me thinking, right? Beyonce apparently got some money. I wonder if Taylor Swift did. Shouldn't they have to disclose that? I mean, honestly, like here I am telling you Balance of Nature, as an advertiser on the show. I don't have a problem with it. It is what it is. Let's be truthful here. Al Sharpton, if you're getting paid by the Kamala campaign or your organization is getting paid, I kind of think that that's something that we should know about. I remember back when I worked at CNBC, they were super strict about speeches, maybe because they had run into this stuff before. So, you couldn't take any money for giving a speech somewhere. But then they kind of looked the other way with some people, and some people still somehow managed to do it. Suspicious. Again, if I'm Brian Roberts, I want to be done with this thing so darn fast. It is a fire sale. I can't get rid of it fast enough. But, some of the celebrities are saying no, like there's no wrong. I'll be curious to see what really happens with Oprah.
Hey, Oprah, good morning. How are you, darling? You looking very good. How do you think the election went?
Not talking about the election. Thank you very much.
Oh, is it true that they paid you $1 million for the endorsement for Kamala?
Not true.
Not true, okay.
I was paid nothing, ever.
What do you think about all the celebrities with their mass exodus?
I'm not talking about
Do you think Prince Harry's going to lose his visa now that Trump's president? Thank you, Oprah.
Oh, as she goes off in her Range Rover, Kamala Harris plowed through $1 billion, writes the Washington Examiner. I'm just saying, this is sus. That's my new word. The kids use it. Literally. Sus.
Guys.
Can you hear this guy? He's like, what's going on? He looks at Harris Faulkner talking.
$10 million for Beyonce.
What?
To step up and back Kamala Harris publicly. $5 million for Megan Thee Stallion. $3 million for Lizzo. $1.8 million for Eminem.
What?
Is that normally how it goes? You spend 20.
Hold on a second. So,
and he's like, what the heck? I mean, what are these people doing? How is it that Donald Trump doesn't have to pay for Elon, for example, but this woman's out there paying all kinds of crazy money for Megan Thee Stallion? Other people can look at that different ways, right? I get it, guys, because a lot of people will say Elon Musk, maybe he's going to benefit from some Pentagon contracts, etc. I'm just going to say something about Elon. Biden's so obsessed with these EVs. We would not have EVs, okay, if it were not for Elon Musk. We wouldn't be sending spaceships up to Mars if it weren't for Elon Musk. Elon Musk is really smart. I kind of want more of Elon Musk, not less. I can use a little less Megan Thee Stallion and Eminem and Oprah Winfrey, for goodness sakes. I agree. Piece of my mind is like, what the heck? She's out there saying she didn't personally get any money. Well, what about her company, Harpo Productions? The question should have, had a follow-up. The reporter needed to double down on that. Anyway, look, these celebrity types, they did not help her at all. Donald Trump graciously offering actually to pay some of the vendors off because, listen, I'm reading your comments as I do this show, and sometimes they're a little distracting because Don Baca had a really funny one. He writes, Lizzo gets paid by the pound. Yeah, all right. That was just too easy, right? Anyway, these people that are, out there saying, I want this, I want that. And then we look at them, as Mike says, Eminem's a sellout. I just wonder how many sellouts are there in the media itself? Is that why we had to listen ad nauseum to all of these anchors going on and on and on? Maybe the networks were getting paid. Maybe this is why they're freaking out. Oh my gosh, Donald Trump has won. The gravy train is over. Good. It's high time the gravy train be over. Think about the fact that they had to spend over $100,000 just to recreate the Call Her Daddy, Call Me Daddy, whatever the heck it is. I don't listen to it. Raunchy podcast show so that Kamala could go on that, but she didn't want to travel to it. So no. They had to spend tons of money recreating the studio in her hotel room. I mean, imagine if she were in charge of your money, your taxpayer dollars. Instead, we're getting a guy in there who's saying, no, we need to save money. I mean, I know Trump, and he can be very generous, but he can also be a little bit cheap. And I mean this in a good way. He still knows the value of a dollar. And he doesn't believe in excess waste. I'll tell you a funny story, when I was at the White House to interview him, he was showing me around the Oval Office, and actually he doesn't work in the Oval Office. That's more like, how shall we say, almost like a production studio, right? That's sort of where they take the photo op, etc. But he works in this room off this hallway. So there's a narrow hallway, and there's this room that kind of reminds me of, it's old. It's sort of it reminded me of an old dining room, because there was this big, long dining room table, and he would sit at one end of it, and he had all the TVs displayed at the other end, and he had his laptop computer and his cell phone, and that's where he would work. And right off of that, there's a little closet, which he was kind of funny about it. He's like, this closet, that's where apparently Clinton and Monica had their thing. Anyway, I digress, and we're keeping it clean. We're not Call Her Me Daddy, whatever it is. So there's this closet, and he would keep his gifts in there for people, and he had these bowls, and I remember him giving me a bowl, and it was this sort of funny thing. It was just a little trinket worth less than $50, and he said, here, this is for you. He's like, actually, it's your taxpayer dollars anyway. I'm not giving you anything of value. And by the way, the taxpayers pay for this stuff. He seemed kind of just astonished that, taxpayers are paying. I digress. But my point being, he knows the value of a dollar. He's very aware of the value of a dollar. And I think that's one of the things that Americans like about him. I don't think Kamala really is. He's got way more dollars than her. But Kamala's just not sort of clued in to what stuff costs. I could see Trump being like, it's going to cost $100,000. No way. Well, just get me on a plane or something. He'd find some other way to do it. Or he'd call in, or who knows. But he would not spend $100,000 to remake a hotel room into a studio. It would just go against, I think, his sort of foundation. And I think that's what a lot of voters still respond to. So even though he's as wealthy as he is, he's going to be in sync with Elon on this thing. Department of Government Efficiency. I mean, he's just going to love it, right? Because he's going to want to make sure that they're running a tight ship. He doesn't like the idea of dollars falling through the cracks. And don't we need somebody like that? All right, I've often said we need more of a CEO that's looking for quarterly earnings. Speaking of which, just about 6 weeks ago, I sat down at a conference in New York City with a bunch of investors and Vivek Ramaswamy, actually. I was interviewing him on stage for this. I may have told you guys. And he talked a lot about how we could instill some kind of privatization, if you would, into the government. And so I wasn't totally following him at the time. I remember asking, well, what do you mean? Like, would you put in private-public partnerships? And he's like, no, because you have all kinds of room for graft in something like that. And I said, well, how are you going to actually create a scenario where government workers are incentivized to be as sort of streamlined and profitable as they can be, like to make the most of something? And I think this is what they're going to really start attacking. This is what they're going to be looking at. It's outside of government. So it's almost like, I know everybody hates this when consultants come in, but think about a consulting company coming in and saying, okay, you guys are really not running this business very well. And we think that we could help you a lot if you did X, Y, and Z. And that's what they're going to do. So as the government becomes more efficient, maybe they do outsource some stuff, or maybe they take a page out of Elon's book. When you think about Twitter having to fire 80% of its workforce, could we do a whole lot more with less? I hope, right? Quick reminder to go over to 76 Research, our financial website, where you can get a whole lot of information about financial markets and what stocks we like to invest in. Lots of different content there. Just a quick look at our top financial pick, up 24%, utility up 24%, real estate up 23%. You get the picture. It's important to put yourself and your financial future first. You can do that at 76 Research, just $1. It costs just $1 with code word dollar, $1 a month for the first 2 months. 76research.com. I'll see you there. I'm just looking at your comments again. These are terrific, guys. Cut the fat, cut the bloat, all of that. We need to. It's so important, right? So again, if you're interested in 76 Research, go over there. You can look at the model portfolios. You know what else you can do is go to the guide, Invest in Maga, investinmaga.com. It's all free. Go look at this because there's a lot of opportunity coming your way. Gold, I don't want to ignore gold. We love gold. One of our sponsors here on the show happens to be a gold company, American Hartford Gold. You can learn more about how to get up to $15,000 in free silver with this special offer. For qualifying offers, text Trish to 65532, call 1-844-495-1115, or go to trishlovesgold.com. So, Matt Gaetz. He's got a lot of baggage around him, right? Because the Democrats were pretty vicious, and he's pretty vicious. Like, he's not going to put up with a lot. And I think it's interesting that they're bringing Matt Gaetz in at a time when Jack Smith is being sent packing. So he's leaving, and apparently he's taking his entire team. This has been confirmed officially today. As of today, November 13th, I like the 13th. I've always liked the 13th. I was born on the 13th, so there you go. I turned 13 on Friday the 13th. I was Miss New Hampshire when I was number 13, so this is a good day. Jack Smith leaves D.C. on November 13th. Remember that. He's taken off. His entire team has been disbanded, just as Matt Gaetz comes into town. So he's already on notice right here. The GOP saying, you know what? You better preserve all those records because we need to get to the bottom of what the heck went down. I mean, what the heck went down? Think about 2 federal cases. You got the case in Georgia from Fannie Willis. You got 2 cases in New York City. Letitia James, for goodness sakes, with Judge Erdogan in the nearly $500 million fine. And then we learned, of course, just yesterday that Judge Mershon has punted. Another win, frankly, for Donald Trump. He says he is going to wait until next week to decide on the sentencing. You see, because the sentencing in that particular case, that was you can't use money or move money around to protect your personal life because, then you were the president. Well, the Supreme Court's like, well, actually, the immunity clause does protect you. I mean, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Think about that judge, Judge Merson, who was like, oh, you can pick one of these three things, A, B, or C. Do you think he was maybe guilty of one of these things? You don't have to decide exactly what you think he's guilty of. Just, one of these three things will do. Multiple choice test. It was outrageous. Outrageous. And I don't know what they're trying to do, if they're trying to set themselves up for some kind of civil war. New York versus the feds. Because guess who's in charge of the feds now? Anyway, Jonathan Turley, who's a legal scholar, talking about this and how shameful it is that New York actually did this.
What happened in that courtroom became superfluous because of those instructions. Some of us were hoping for a hung jury because we hoped that the jury might redeem the New York legal system, which is one of the greatest legal systems in the world. And as these last few weeks have left many of us shocked as to what we saw in that courtroom. But that was not going to happen after the instructions were finalized. And I wrote a column after I saw the instructions saying it had the feel of a canned hunt, where you can shoot game in a small space. The space was very small for the defense to maneuver, and even smaller, it seemed, for the jury to acquit. So I don't blame the jury at all. I think that what they heard in that room probably made it seem to many of them that this was a lead pipe cinch of a conviction. They heard over and over again the prosecutors say that there were election violations committed by Donald Trump, that he ordered Cohen to commit the violations he pled guilty to. That totally smashed the instruction that Merchan had given. And Merchan just sat there. There was no response. So what do you think the jury is going to rule? And then when you tell them, just pick a crime among the three, you don't have to agree. Just pick one of these crimes. If you think that secondary crime was behind all of this, you're good to go. But to this day, most of us don't know what the jury decided because we know that they unanimously voted to convict. We don't know what they convicted him of. They could have disagreed 4-4-4 on what occurred in this case. That's one of the first things that I think a court will look at for reversal.
Yeah, without a doubt, a huge constitutional issue. I would argue a Sixth Amendment one.
Don makes an interesting point. Merchan doesn't want to enter a verdict because then Trump would immediately appeal it on an expedited basis. It's quite possible. So what is he going to do? Just have this thing hang over his head? I mean, you're going to postpone it for a week and then what? So I think they're trying to do some legal maneuvering behind the scenes. They've got some people working overtime. It is dirty politics, as Bruce points out. Lawfare politics. It is kind of psychotic seeming. Here is some reaction from Fox just yesterday as we got this news in.
Lawfare failed by 75 million plus votes, and that total is going up by the hour as we continue to count votes. 75 million. President Trump got more votes in raw vote totals than any Republican president ever. That's a fact. So lawfare failed. You guys tried that. This case was unprecedented. The New York Times, no fan of this man. The New York Times, biased New York Times. I want to tell you what they said. A New York Times review and interviews with election law experts strongly suggests New York state prosecutors have never before filed an election law case involving a federal campaign. And they go on. This was unprecedented. This should have been dismissed. Judge Merchan, why didn't you dismiss this days ago? This case should have never been brought. It should have been dismissed on summary judgment after it was brought. This is lawfare 2.0.
It is. And this is the danger now, right? So now we're going into this really weird time where are they going to continue this in some way, shape, or form? It's why I think you want to have your attack dogs or pit bulls out there, which is why you have somebody like Matt Gaetz as AG because, hey, you know what, sweetheart, Letitia, as Mike Davis so appropriately said, we may just have to put your you-know-what. Well, he's more colorful than I am.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term. Because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time. And we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights. And I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights. It's not going to happen again.
We've been warning people on the show, Mike, this isn't the same Trump administration. Stop messing around. Don't rig elections. Don't illegally vote.
He's right. I mean, it is not the same administration. And I was sort of knocked off my seat when I saw the Matt Gaetz appointment. I know people had talked about it. But this is, it's like the left putting in Adam Schiff. I mean, this is somebody who's kind of the nuclear option, but it also signals that they're not messing around. And they need to signal that in light of what Letitia's signaling, for goodness sakes. You heard her the other day.
So as you can see, we know their playbook. We know Project 2025 before it was even published. And we have been working both in my office and with other Democratic AGs across this country to make sure that we would be ready to respond to any attempt to roll back our rights. So here we are. We've studied their platforms. We've identified certain possibilities, fact patterns. We've created contingency plans. So no matter what the next administration throws at us, we're ready.
Okay.
We're ready to respond to their attacks.
Oh, you're ready. But you
We're
know what?
ready
They're ready to. And Letitia, I would not be surprised if you go packing as well. I mean, Jack Smith had his day. He's packing up he's trying to take his boxes with him. The GOP wants to make sure that there's some evidence left around. But Letitia, I'm warning you here. I'm warning you, especially with Matt Gaetz in there and some really tough lawyers. You know what? You could be next. Mm-hmm. I mean, you should be disbarred. Frankly, your case is going to be thrown out. Incidentally, at least I forget. Court of Appeals of New York. I mean, you saw the judges, guys, have shown you some of this stuff. This Judith Vale, who was representing Letitia James, she couldn't even get to first base. The judges just absolutely snapped at her. You know why? Because the case has no merit. That's how disgusting this whole thing is.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Well, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
I've taken on powerful interests like developers. I've taken on legislators. I've taken on landlords. I've taken on powerful interests in the city of New York because I believe in a good fight. And right now, what we need is someone who understands that you should not be afraid, not be fearful of Donald Trump. We should take him down. We should sue him all the way to bankruptcy. We should investigate his business interests.
Okay, well, you know what? She got to do all that. She got to do all that, and I'd like to know just exactly what that was about. Was that really about justice, or was that about politics? I think we know the answer. And guess what? We're going to get to know even more if this guy gets through.
All right, we've got another Trump appointment, and this is one that is probably going to surprise a lot of people because he was not on any of the lists that were floating around out there. And there had been some discussion that President-elect Trump was having a little trouble making this final decision, or maybe this is the person he had in mind all along. But he has now nominated Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as Attorney General of the United States. He just wrote this on Truth Social, quote, Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, trained at William & Mary College of Law, distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. Few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department.
In other words, this team means business. There's a new sheriff in town, however you want to say it. America voted for Donald Trump. And he's going to put people in that are going to make sure that we don't have this crazy stuff happen again, because it was crazy stuff. You saw Letitia. I mean, she's pretty darn crazy. She's pretty darn rabid. It was all about her getting elected. And by the way, it's still going to be all about her getting elected unless we actually restore some normalcy, some decency to politics in America. And that's what needs to happen. I'll tell you, it's possible. It certainly could. I liked what I saw today. I liked this exchange.
Well, Mr. President-elect.
I liked how happy Biden seemed.
Congratulations. Thank you. And,
it shows you.
Looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk.
It shows you that America really is great. And America can rise to the occasion. And America can rise beyond the nonsense of the Letitia Jameses and the Alvin Braggs and the Judge Mershons and the Judge Erdwins and Fannie Willis and the rest of these nut jobs that are trying to make careers, really and truly careers, and make money off of Donald Trump. The flip side of the coin, right? They're on the other side. It's terrible. It's really, really, really terrible. But it's going to be coming to an end. I'm looking at all your comments here. Guys, I mean, we are really taking off. So thank you for that. I see so many people who love the show, and I see so many familiar faces that are tuning in every single day. And listen, it's getting very interesting. I think it's going to get even more interesting in the coming days. Let's hope some of these appointments get through. I think they will. Look. He's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the Oval Office. You got more Republicans in charge of states. This had to happen. Oh, I love it. Mike Costa, thank you for the kind comments. Thank you very much for all of it. It's good to see all you guys. Luke Walker, welcome back. He's got some interesting things to say about Tish James, of course. Tish James is going to be done. And you know what? She should be. I'm sorry. Like, what is this woman doing? This woman is campaigning in, dare I say, I mean, it's kind of a strong word to say, but it's kind of in an evil way. And I would just remind everyone, hey, Joe Scarborough gets the picture, right? He's moving on. Funny how quickly that can happen. But I would remind everyone that we as a nation need to heal and move on, and we need to move forward, and we need to look forward to all the greatness that this wonderful capitalist meritocracy actually has in it, and what can happen when the right people allow this to be unleashed. So, good things ahead. Remember to go over to Invest in Maga or 76research.com. The Invest in Maga guide is free for you. So go check that out. 76research.com, where you can get all the model portfolios. Go check that out. Listen, there's much ahead. So make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that stuff. I will be back with you hopefully a little bit earlier. I mean, we just had so much news today. So much coming in, one thing after another. It's exciting. I'll see you tomorrow.